You know, guys, have any of you guys watched Saw 3? Alright, now this is really important. I know it sounds random, but listen. One of the main stories in that movie was a man going through just a series of horrible, disgusting tasks with the aim of reaching his final task where he's finally able to see the guy who actually hit his child with his car. And, you know, our main character in this instance is just filled with vengeance, and finally when he reaches him, he finally gets to see this man's face for who he is, and his choices are to either let him die or to forgive him and try to save him. Why do I bring this up, guys? Because I feel like here in Call of Duty, especially through the MW 2019 era, the dark ages of COD, so many people want to know exactly who is at fault for some of these terrible design decisions behind Call of Duty, especially in the last couple of years. So let me take you guys back to MW 2019 Part 2. I mean, this game is just god-awful. If you have anything nice to say about this game, I just don't think you deserve human rights, and that's just my personal, honest opinion. If you have anything nice to say it in a way that you're trying to defend it, I'm sorry, but it sounds like you're giving Activision the classic. And quite frankly, I would choose to ignore your existence on this planet as you provide absolutely nothing. But part of the reason this game sucked so bad was because we had this weird infatuation and obsession with just tying everything in with Warzone, and this was the time that Warzone 2 came out. And guys, Warzone 2 was just... Oh god, I actually almost threw up just pretending to throw up. What the... The point is, guys, Warzone 2 is not very good. And after MW 2019 Part 2 and Warzone 2, as we know, MW 2019 Part 3 comes out, and a lot of people think this was the savior of the dark ages of COD, as in the last 5-6 years of COD have been totally unbelievably chalked, but this game was somehow okay. But when there was the apparent opportunity to actually make larger strides with MW 2019 Part 3, we were all under the assumption that Infinity Ward played a large part in why Sledgehammer Games was essentially cucked and blocked out from making some of these decisions that would have made this game infinitely better. But before I get too ahead of myself, guys, let's just bring up this tweet by Doug Dimmadome Warzone. The man says, "Just how badly did Warzone 2 set Call of Duty back in the Battle Royale space? Feels like everything since then has been a reversion to what Warzone originally was." And that's not even the main tweet that I want to talk about today, guys. My main tweet is actually coming from the Ghost of Hope, and his response to this tweet is extremely telling. He comes out here and says, "Do not let people know that the guy who was responsible for the failure of MW 2019 Part 2 and Warzone 2 got promoted after the game's release and is now the creative director of Call of Duty overall, and largely the reason of why Sledgehammer Games was held back on features for MW 2019 Part 3 like Bloomberg leaked." And guys, before we, do our little ceremony here on the channel, our little ritual as you guys know of it, I just need to remind you some of the changes that we could have potentially seen in MW 2019 Part 3, and I don't know, you guys tell me if this would have made the game a little bit more enjoyable, but there was rumors that Sledgehammer Games wanted to bring back Pick 10 into the game, and instead, they were blocked out. Originally, we thought this was just entirely Infinity Ward, and even though a lot of us have PTSD, rightfully so, from Joe Seacott, he actually wasn't the main culprit in the decision to not only not include Pick 10, but revert back to this weird gunsmith thing that we've seen for years on end, and honestly it's just tired and it's boring and it's stale. I don't know how people prefer this over Pick 10, and yeah, I guess you can sort of concoct something within the middle of that, but we didn't even do anything like that. Instead, we just completely scrapped Pick 10.
Please! Please! No!
And there was other decisions, I don't know how true this one was, but there was talks of prestiging like normal, maybe making a return in this game. Obviously this didn't actually happen, so I don't know, you guys tell me. Do you think some of these changes that Sledgehammer Games was trying to make for this game would have actually made this game a much more enjoyable experience, or do you think that this was actually for the worst? I personally think it was for the worst. Now, in part, that is because my IQ is at least above average, and I can't say the same for a lot of other people that enjoyed MW 2019 Part 2 or Warzone 2, or some of the people that thought that the launch of MW 2019 Part 3 was okay. First of all, I completely disagree, and secondly, short bus. And this was actually another response by somebody else who says, would that change if Sledgehammer Games were on their own IP? And the Ghost of Hope responds with, as far as I know, yes it would've, but only because the guy has no say on Black Ops and what they do over there. He just tried strong-arming Sledgehammer Games and they practically leaked all the BS they got put through with him because of it. And who is the man behind these changes, guys? Who is the man that some way, somehow got promoted? I mean, you can make the case that this guy is one of the biggest reasons as to why Call of Duty has just been on the downhill trend over the last couple of years. Now, guys, as a content creator with almost 25,000 subscribers, I should say, I mean, if you want to help out, you know what to do. I do find it to be my responsibility to tell you guys that I don't know if I want to even do this next part of the video because it could go in so many negative different directions, but for the sake of the content, I'm kind of leaning towards doing it. But before I do this, I need everybody who is above average IQ and below average IQ to all just remove your special helmets for just a second and just be super reasonable right now. I need you guys to not go over the edge, right? Don't get weird, don't do weird things, don't say mean, nasty things to this person, and don't be weird. Don't be doxing this guy, don't be doing weird things, don't be saying horrible things, don't be contacting his family, just don't be weird. But guys, this might be one of the first times you hear of this man's existence, but I'd like to present to you all the new Joe Seacott of Call of Duty, Mr. Pat Kelly, Head of Creative Development in Call of Duty. Now, for those of you who don't know, I used to have some terrible beef with Mr. Joe Seacott. This guy might actually take the cake because not only is he just essentially doing the exact same as Joe Seacott for MW 2019 Part 2 and Warzone 2, but some way, somehow, Activision and Bobby Cosby thought this guy deserved a promotion.
Congratulations! Oh my God.
And then on top of that, he starts cucking Sledgehammer Games from making positive changes to their iteration of MW 2019 Part 2. Now, don't get it twisted. Sledgehammer Games, if they had an ounce of actual creativity or hard-working mentality, I don't know if I would have worked there. Would I have decided to continue with MW 2019 as essentially the exact same IP for the next year? But if I did, and this guy was my boss telling me, hey, you want to put pick 10 into the game and maybe the possibility of prestiging? And who knows, at that point, maybe some of these developers didn't even want SBMM in their game, or maybe at least not even that thick. But for this guy to block out all of those decisions and essentially veto them from going through, I mean, guys, are we surprised with what's about to happen to this guy? Pat Kelly, I am not sorry to do this to you at all, and this is as far as I want this to go, by the way, guys. But Pat Kelly, get your ass onto the short bus and go straight to Epstein Island and do not come back until you've strained through all of your sins. We talk a lot about prostitution here on the channel, guys, and it's for a good reason. We know that when it comes to SBMM and some of these manipulative tactics within Call of Duty to just make the experience as noob-friendly as possible, all for the sake of generating more money, that is essentially just prostitution, alright? Let's be honest. And if you're going to engage in such activities, you're going to Epstein Island. That's just how it goes, alright? Of course, there's other people in there that deserve to be in there for other reasons, but Pat Kelly, not really somebody who I think deserves human rights because, I mean, honestly, what are you doing for human civilization? I think it's fair to say that you have contributed heavily to the downfall of Call of Duty. Now, once again, before I finish this entire commentary in a few minutes, please do not be weird to the guy, alright? At the end of the day, he's just making his money. Same way Scatmaster is, the same way that you wouldn't enjoy somebody going after you and your family being weird, same thing I would think, and it's the same thing this guy thinks, even though he is responsible for a lot of terrible, god-awful things in Call of Duty. But at the end of the day, guys, let's be civil, alright? Come on. We are better than the Gooch Lickers, just remember that. Mr. Kelly, I am just confused as to how you thought any of the decisions that went into Warzone 2 and MW 2019 Part 2 were so great and grand for the community, even though we vocalized all of our feedback with how terrible those two things were, and decided upon your promotion that you would like to keep the ball rolling going into the next game developed by other people. Yes, them along with Activision were lazy fools who decided to not move on past MW 2019 Part 2 and just keep it going, just make it faster. But some of the changes that Sledgehammer Games were at least considering cooking up were all in favor of the community. It was entirely community driven that these developers even knew that we wanted Pick 10 returning into the game, that we wanted prestiging back. You didn't gather this from data, they didn't guess, they took it as feedback from the community. Now when other game developers listen to feedback, they actually consider it, they try things out, and if they get it wrong, they apologize. You, on the other hand, it seems like you go by different values, which is why I simply cannot respect anybody who aligns themselves with the same ideologies and values and decision-making skills as this guy over here. So it's not even entirely just him, it is Activision as a whole. I think these people genuinely had the opportunity to not let Call of Duty delve further into the dark abyss, the dark ages of COD, but because of this man's decisions, as well as Infinity Ward's, as well as Activision's, I don't really care what the reasoning is. I don't care if it was money-based or, you know, you wanted to follow some quotas or whatever it was. We could have actually had something much better with MW 2019 Part 3. That's not to say MW 2019 Part 3 is the worst Call of Duty of all time. I still think that's MW 2019 and or like Ghosts and MW 2019 Part 2, but if those two games are in my bottom Call of Duties of all time, why would we continuously try to snowball that and make it even worse for an additional year? I am just missing out on the logic here. I don't understand, and maybe if I were to drop my IQ by like 99%, then maybe I would understand a little bit, but personally, I'm not one to hop on the short bus, I'm not one to take a trip to Epstein Island, I'm not one to end up in the gulag. I'm just confused, guys. I'm confused. Think of some of your least favorite qualities about MW 2019 Part 2, guys. Slide canceling was nerfed. We continued not having red dots on the minimap. Skill-based matchmaking was disgusting. We had horrible launch content. Like 99% of the maps that we got in that game were all inside of the Warzone 2 map. Not to mention the border crossing map. Like, guys, there's no way you can tell me there was any type of glimmering hope for that game, and for somebody to actually take it upon themselves and think, hey, I'd like to keep this trend going into the next game developed by completely other people who have a different vision for what they want to do with their lazy concocted version of this game. You just have to have problems. There's no other way around it. Just thinking of what MW 2019 Part 3 could have been with some actual decent design decisions, it really just becomes this whole what if. No! 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 It's simply a missed opportunity. And I don't want to hear people going off on a tangent about, oh well, MW 2019 Part 3 had red dots on the minimap and the game was faster. Those don't count as design decisions to me. Those are just common sense rules. That should just be the standard. Okay, we should not have been hyped and baited into buying this game because there was red dots on the minimap and we could slide cancel. A lot of these things that you guys got hyped about this game for should just be defaults. They should be non-negotiables. Things that actually take a different creative design decision to do would be something like the Pick 10 system. But when you block that out in the name of being somebody who is apparently the head of all creative decisions and design choices in Call of Duty, I just simply don't think you are the qualified person to do this job. And honestly, I think the Scab Master would do better. Would you guys disagree? I think a lot of these other content creators would have been greater than this guy. My grandma probably would have been better. These choices were god-awful. Disgusting. I mean, Mr. Kelly, what happened to you? Something must have happened where your happiness was just not relevant, and so now you're taking it upon yourself to just remove happiness from everybody else's lives that interacts with your game. And it shouldn't even be your game. Alright, you would not exist without Joe Seacott, and that man sucks. That's like taking inspiration from the thing I left in the toilet bowl. But that's gonna do it for me today, guys. I'm curious to know what you guys think about all this. Again, without being weird, if you were the creative director for Call of Duty, what different choices would you have made, assuming you had an IQ above 4? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notifications to stay up to date with my newest videos. And yeah, guys, it's been the boy Fooly. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out of here. Toodles.